Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the importance of establishing routines and working on some of the activities of daily living with your child. So, before we start talking about routines and teaching your children activities of daily living, I just wanted to go over what those activities are. So, those activities include independent use of the bathroom, bathing and hygiene, eating, feeding, and even preparing food, dressing, and that's not just putting on your clothes, but knowing what to wear and when. All of your grooming skills and transferring, meaning whether that's moving independently safely from one room to another, or eventually, as our children are older, learning to navigate walking on busy streets and taking communal transportation. So, as we set up ways that we're going to teach activities of daily living, especially during this time of remote learning, the biggest thing we can do for our children is set up um, positive, predictable, and short routines for success. I've been on several webinars about how we can support our kids during this time, and every single person, the first thing they say is we have to make sure that we have routines for our kiddos. Routines are foundational for successful living. Not only children with autism and other disabilities, but most children and adults thrive off of simple routines. Keeping them short, simple, and the same every day is best. Again, routines don't just help us manage our lives and decrease proud behavior and get more things done. It also creating and establishing a routine, having your child do the same things in the same order every day, promotes independence, and that'll later contribute to more self-care and potentially vocational or higher education opportunities. Some of the routines we teach in school, we teach an arrival and dismissal routine. We have routines centered around lunchtime and snack. Of course, the bathroom routines, transitions between activities all the time through the use of visual schedules, which is another video on our YouTube channel. Completing chores and tasks, and of course, our kids need to have time to play, but they need to have time to play purposely. So there are even children with play schedules in school. Some of the routines you may set up or already have going at home include uh, routines surrounding mealtime, whether that's coming to the table, helping prepare the meal, or cleaning up. We do have a video on the YouTube channel about teaching your child how to set the table, which is great. Other routines include getting dressed and undressed, what you do when you wake up, as well as a bedtime routine. Many families right now have to organize play and work time schedules with so many people working from home. Other chores that children can do. Um, and remember, if children are busy doing purposeful and meaningful things that they enjoy or they contact your praise, attention, or other reinforcers for, there is less time to, well, get into trouble. So we want to make sure that our routines are not filled with work, have a balance between preferred and unpreferred activities, but busy is always better, especially during these times of remote learning. So remember, when you're setting up routines, remember the three S's: short, simple, and something that you can keep similar every day. Every single piece of the routine doesn't have to be the same, but we want it to be similar so our child learns what to do and becomes more independent with the routine. When you're setting up a routine, make sure it's not something you're doing just once a week. You want it to be something that you are practicing daily. Now is a great time to set up routines because we have a little bit more time in our homes. We're not rushing from one place to another. So be sure to work on routines that you have enough time to practice daily. Even though it might spend more, you might have to spend more time now. For example, if you're teaching your child to lay out their clothes and get dressed themselves, that might take a little bit more time than you pulling clothes out of the drawer and, throwing them on your child. But if you spend more time teaching these things now and promote that independence, you're going to be spending less time later. Think about, for example, if we, helped our child lay out their clothes and taught them to put them on for 2 weeks. And then after those 2 weeks, your child could do this completely independently. It's going to end up saving you a lot more time than you continuing to get them dressed. Make sure when you choose routines that you are taking some prerequisites into account, meaning if your child doesn't have the fine motor dexterity to put their socks on, that's probably not a great routine to start with. Things that can be part of your routine and also are part of activities of daily living include hand washing, independent toileting, dressing, face washing or bathing, and then a play or chore or activity schedule. All these things lend itself to routines and are also very important. So the way you want to set this up, and the way that you can help your child work on an activity of daily living that could be part of a larger routine is select a skill to teach. So again, you want to take those prerequisites into account, make sure we have the physical capacity to be able to perform the routine, choose something that again you can practice every day that you have enough time for right now, um, and work on that. Now, you can work on a particular activity of daily living, or you can again work on a routine, such as what do we do when we get ready for bed? And that could have several activities of daily living involved. So that might be changing into pajamas, putting the dirty clothes in the hamper, brushing teeth, taking a drink, and then getting into bed and reading a story. Another great way to help out when you're teaching these skills, some of those larger ADLs like hand washing, which is so important right now, or putting on our clothes, or doing an activity schedule. A really great way to kind of frame this out and make sure you're teaching it in small and manageable steps for your child is creating what we call a task analysis. And a task analysis is just the breaking down of one big behavior to a sequence of behaviors. Okay? The best way to do this is to observe your child. Completing the routine and seeing all the steps involved. So, for example, let's say we wanted to work on a dressing routine and we're going to work on putting on a shirt. Now, putting on a shirt for us might be a one-step process, but actually, the mechanics of putting on a shirt take several steps, right? We have to lay the shirt down with the tag closest to us. We have to put our head through the correct hole. Then we have to reach one arm through, the other arm through, and pull the shirt down. So even though it seems like one step, okay, put on your shirt, there are actually 5 steps involved in that. And that is what a task analysis is, breaking down a bigger task, like putting on your shirt, into all the little component parts so you can spend time teaching them. Make sure when you're thinking about this and conceptualizing your teaching that the steps that you are breaking down are clear, simple, discrete, and are observable slash measurable because you want to see whether or not your student is learning them. And if they're not learning them, potentially reaching out to your child's teacher to figure out what the problem might be and how to support them to learn that particular step. Here's an example of a really important task analysis this day and age. Clean hygiene and maintaining safety and washing our hands often and long enough is really, really important. So here's an example of a skill of an activity of daily living that has become really important and the breakdown of those skills into what we call a task analysis. Our goal is when we tell our student to go wash your hands, they will do the following steps. Again, that bigger skill broken down into those component skills. They'll turn on the water, they'll pump soap, they'll rub their hands together. Nowadays, it's more like 20 seconds. They'll rinse the hands under the water and then they'll dry their hands. So that's just one example of a task analysis. Now, these skills are really hard for our kiddos. Sometimes they don't, especially if you've been helping them, don't understand the purpose of you fading your assistance and having them practice these skills. So make sure, just like any other skill that you're teaching, even though this is a little bit more applicable, it's not academic or language based in nature, right? It's occurring more naturally in the environment. You want to still make sure that you're using reinforcement, whether that's praise, social attention. I'm so proud of you. Great job washing their hands. They're so clean. Let me give you a hug. Or it's some kind of access to toys, favorite activities, maybe even some kind of edible. We want to make sure that our kids are highly motivated to perform those skills so that then we can fade out our help and proximity to them and then eventually fade that reinforcer. But we want them to be highly motivated and engaged to start. Some teaching tips for working on activities of daily living and routine. Most of our kiddos are small enough where you can still prompt them from behind. We don't want to stand across from them while helping them put on their shirt because that's not what they're going to be seeing when they do it independently. If you prompt them from behind, you're prompting them much like their body already moves, and then their view of what they normally see when they're putting on their shirt is the same. Um, just like you would prompt a child with brushing teeth or washing their face, you want to make sure that you're behind them. We want to use something that we've talked about before called most to least prompting. We want to really help our kids out and fade out that help slowly because we want them to be highly successful and get that motivation and get that reinforcer first lots of times before we allow them to do it independently. If we don't use most to least prompting and we say put on, your shirt and the child has trouble, they could become unmotivated. They might learn the wrong way. They might inadvertently learn some errors that are hard to get rid of. So using most to least prompting, helping them to be successful first and then fading out is the best way. You can also use modeling. And then when your kids become more independent, you can do something called a time delay. Allow them 2 to 5 seconds to do it themselves. And if they're still having trouble, help them out. Something we also want to make sure we're doing during teaching is utilizing visuals and gestures. We want to avoid giving our children lots of verbal prompts or vocal directions whenever possible because those are really hard to fade and we don't want children to become dependent on our directions. Again, our goal for these activities of daily living and these routines is our kids doing them independently. But if you're standing behind them and saying, put your head through the hole of the shirt first, come on now, your arm, it's going to be really hard for them to remember what to do when you're not there. So try to avoid those verbal directions and vocal prompts and use gestures, modeling, and some physical prompting to help them do the skill successfully. So something you can do that'll be really helpful is ask your teacher for suggestions on some routines or activities of daily living that will make your life easier and that your child has the prerequisites for. A lot of our teachers also have different task analyses, so different skills broken down. I know we have hand washing, face washing, hand drying, putting on a shirt, teeth brushing, just to name a few. So definitely reach out to see what and how you might be able to teach these skills and which ones to choose first. We also have a lot of visuals based on some of these skills, so just make sure you ask for those as well. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for coming to our presentation. We hope you enjoyed it. Again, I can't stress the importance of reaching out to your teacher to see what is going to be best for your child.